I've noticed is whenever I'm trying to book out of state shows with Bumsy, sometimes it's kind of hard to find those ska bands. It's coming back, but we're still kind of like hidden. We're like niche, still. So it's like finally a group where I know where the ska bands are.
Hey, Caitlin, how's it going?
Good, Andy. What's up?
Yeah, hey, thanks for coming to the Question the Answers podcast. So Caitlin Edwards is the singer slash guitarist for Bumsy and The Moochers, a band out of the Chicago, Illinois suburb area. And she's also the co-founder of the Punk The Burbs Festival, which is now, well, which would have been in its third year this year, but
Or fourth year.
Oh, fourth year.
Fourth
Okay.
year. Yeah, PTB4. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, my mistake. But so fourth year, and unfortunately, due to everything that's going on with the pandemic, they've had to delay that. But fingers crossed that next year we won't have any additional delay. But I really am excited to have a conversation with you, kind of about what it takes to put together a festival like that. Especially from a DIY standpoint, and just kind of get an idea of what's going on with your musical projects and, a little bit about the Chicago scene. And just give me an idea. So what's Bumsy and the Moochers all about?
Well, Bumsy the Moochers, we started in 2012, and me and the drummer, Chris, we met each other at another punk music festival in Bloomington, Punk Fest. And we were kind of just talking about how we because he was in a pop punk band, I was in a pop punk band at the time. We both like pop punk and ska. And so we just, and then I was like, one day maybe I'll hit you up and we'll let's do a ska band and just have fun and just, be in a band that's fun, no pressure, no, fighting with people, because both our bands too, they were kind of on the, it seems like they were reaching their end. So I think it was like my senior year in college. And I remember, I'll never forget just calling Chris up and being like, cause yeah, literally like my old band got another fight. I'm like, oh, fuck this. Sorry. I don't know if we're allowed to swear. I just totally forgot. Yeah. And I was just like, let's just have just like a fun ska, pop punk band. And I'm like, Chris, you still down? Like when I'm graduating, like in a few months, I'm coming back to the Burbs, and yeah, let's do this ska punk band. So then came Bumsy and the Moochers, and it used to be a 4-piece. It was so funny how it came to be, because it's typically very hard to get a ska band together. But it's like he's like, I know a couple horn players, and then I was like, oh, I know a guitar player, and so we kind of grabbed each of our friends and brought them all together, and then there was Bumsy and the Moochers, and then throughout the years we've had all these lineup changes, but it's always been me and Chris in the band. Like we're the main, founders of the band, but it's definitely a band that's all about just, having fun, bringing back, an old sound of that third wave ska and pop punk, but also something that's a bit our own too. Cause I think we have our own sound. I think people definitely have said, there's that classic Bumsy sound, and people say, man, when you guys are up there, we feel like we can't play after you guys because you're just having so much fun and we're engaging the crowd. And, and then Gabe and Dan, the guitar player and the trumpet player, they're funny. They're like comedians. They're always, we're always interacting on stage, saying funny shit, and then going into some song and getting people to move and dance. So that's what it's all about. It's really just, we take it seriously and everything, but, not too seriously, because we want to have fun with it, and we want our audience to have fun, because that's what I really love about our band too, and why I'm so glad I started a ska band, because I've noticed it's the one genre it gets everybody moving.
It's true. Yeah.
Everybody
Ska seems to be going through a little bit of like a resurgence right now. There's a few labels out there that are dedicated specifically to the genre, which is really cool to see. Like Bad Time Records out of here in the Bay Area. They've been, doing a lot of great work with like, obviously Kill Lincoln and Catfight out of Philly, and Ska-Tune Network, We Are the Union, Omnigon. Obviously bands like the Interrupters kind of struck a chord with a lot of people. So it's kind of getting ska a little bit more back into the.
I heard them on the radio on 101.1, and I'm like, oh yes, it's getting back into people's ears, because people really do like that old sound. And when I tell people I'm in a ska band, they're like, when can I see you? When can I see you? And because people miss that too. It's niche, but it's also very nostalgic. And actually, what was it? One of these guys, I forget, Jeremy from Courtesy of Tim and Josh, they're like this band from ska-punk band from Madison, Wisconsin. They just recently started this Facebook group called Ska-Punk Street Team. And it's probably the best Facebook group for ska that I've ever seen, because it's asking like all these ska bands from all over the country to introduce themselves. And we're all kind of connecting in that group. And I just recently made a post like, this is really good, because when we all get back to touring, now we know where each other are. Because what I've noticed is whenever I'm trying to book out-of-state shows with Bumsy, sometimes it's kind of hard to find those ska bands. It's coming back, but we're still kind of like hidden. We're like niche, still. So it's like finally a group where I know where the ska bands are.
Well, it's something I spoke with Mike from Kill Lincoln and Bad Time Records on another episode, and we were talking about this whole experience that ska is getting a little bit more of a resurgence, and it's not like it ever went away. Ska music never disappeared or anything like that, but I think that a lot of people just kind of got burnt out on it for a while, because there were just like a million ska bands there for like a solid decade. I mean, shoot, I was in a ska band for a number of years as well. And it was a blast, I mean, actually, ironically, it was called the Blast Bandits, but, ska music is a fun music to play and to watch. I've certainly seen a lot of ska bands that I personally was like, oh man, it's just kind of like the recycled sound. But I got to say, like when Tsunami Bomb played Punk The Burbs, it was really refreshing to see you guys up there, because you guys were genuinely having a kick-ass time up there. And like, that's to me the mark of a great ska band, is like they're up there, they're just giving it, they're trying to make everyone move and shake their ass, and it's cool to see that, and so I was really excited to have witnessed that. So it's nice to talk to you about.
Thank you. I know, and it was an honor playing with you guys. I was like, whoa, like I'm opening up for Tsunami Bomb, like this. It's crazy. Like, it was crazy. And then your guys' set was phenomenal.
Oh, thanks.
And oh my gosh, like, and then when Jenna got up there from the Von Tramps, which is another great band, like I was just like, yes, this is what I wanted, like just an amazing fest like this with people, all the bands. That's the thing. I felt like day one with you guys, I'm not saying it was better than day two, but like I felt like we were like all the bands were getting people moving.
Sure.
And so, that's the thing. And that's another thing with ska too. Like I said, people can't help but move with that. And imagine trying to like be sad on a ska band. You can't like be acting like tough or sad in a ska band like you do with some other genres of punk. You gotta be having fun. You gotta have people like wanting them to shake their ass and do crazy shit and jump around on stage. Maybe it's the horns. I don't know. Something about the horns too just makes you be like, okay, this is a party.
No, totally. I mean,
yeah.
I think one of the things that attracted me to ska music when I was a little bit younger and kind of first getting introduced to it, the band that everyone, is their usual go-to is like the first one is either, Up Ivy or like the Boss Tones or the Specials.
A Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake, yeah.
Well, for me, like the band that really struck a chord with me was the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. And like, I just remember feeling like, dude, this is this is unlike anything I've ever heard. And I had heard, you know, Madness and like the Specials and like the Clash when I was real young, when like that stuff was on MTV, like when I was real young. But I had no idea that had any ska influence. Like I didn't know what that was because I wasn't paying attention. But then all of a sudden in high school, I heard the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, and I'm like, dude, this is really fun music. And then, you know, I got introduced to like Rancid and Operation Ivy, and you know, we had a couple of local ska punk bands, and it just seemed like so much fun. I was like, dude, this is fun music. And it's got like that punk kind of edge and punk vitality to it. And for a while there, man, it was on a tear. I mean, you go into a ska show meant that you were going to come back sweaty and, you know, kind of gross and kind of feeling jazz about everything. And I don't know. I mean, I enjoy a good ska show. Down in at Fest in Gainesville this last year, Tsunami Bomb got to play, and you know, we hang out for the weekend, and there was this one particular showcase that was going on at one of the venues, and it was a whole lineup of ska bands. It was Kill Lincoln, Free Kick, Catbite, and Ska Tune Network.
I love Ska Tune Network.
And it was easily one of the best shows of the entire fest. I mean, from top to bottom, the crowd was just crazy, and like that's what I was kind of hoping to see, you know. So it was cool to see that. And
isn't it interesting? No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I was thinking about this. I've played, you know, I've been in pop punk bands, I've been in different bands, and usually when the genre is all the same for those shows, when it's pop punk band after, you know, or hardcore band after hardcore band, you know, it's a fun show, people get engaged, but not as much as a stacked ska lineup. I've noticed that the stacked ska lineup, you can have a whole show full of ska, and I mean, people are coming out like, yes, sweaty, talking afterwards, like, oh my God, like this, I just noticed that right off the bat, because I've been in so many bands, and ska is just, those shows are the ones where people are like, they're going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to plenty of, you know, great ska shows over the years that have left me completely drenched in sweat, and like it's just a lot of fun, you know. And I think one of the other things that I really enjoy about the genre too is that it doesn't really take itself too seriously, you know. I mean, I got to be honest, like I'm not really a huge fan of like the Real Big Fishes in the world, you know. It kind of gets a little long in the tooth with the shtick, you know. Like after a while, I'm just like, okay, dude, like the music's tight, but I'm just like, dude, I don't care, you know, about the shtick anymore. But you get a band like an older band like Skank and Pickle, or like, you know, a newer ska punk band like Kill Lincoln or Ska Tune Network, or even you guys, and it's more about like the energy than the shtick, and like that is where I kind of like zero in on, you know.
So and that's the thing, because I mean, nothing wrong with shtick bands, but I know what you mean. You kind of get tired of it. You're like, I like this, and I'll see you again, but I'm like, we're Bumsy and The Moochers. I mean, look at the name. That's the thing. I remember when we were coming up with the name, we didn't want something too serious because, like you said, I mean, that's the one thing with ska too. It's like, okay, it can't be a name taken too seriously, like, you know, but but we don't want to be a shtick band. And that's why when you see us too, you know, we're kind of just dressed as ourselves.
Oh, sure.
You know, yeah, we're not all wearing Hawaiian shirts. Like Dan will wear Hawaiian shirts sometimes, but really we're all just wearing like our casual clothes. I never really wanted something uniform because I never wanted to be one of those shtick bands. Once again, not like there's anything wrong with that, because I respect like bands who do that, they're killing it. But in my band, I just wanted to be like, we could just be us, because I didn't want there to be, you know, any pressure to have to be or look a certain way. Just come as you are, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think any band in any genre can potentially fall victim to having to adhere to like this weird trope, you know, that they might they might actually plunge themselves into, like, oh, like we're a hardcore band, so we have to dress like a certain way. And it's like, nah, you don't really, dude. Like, you don't really, you know?
Geez, you could show up in your work clothes. Who cares?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, as long as you play good.
Right.
And have fun.
Right. As long as the energy's there and you're authentic, you know, in what you're doing, and you're not trying to shine people on, I think people are much more concerned about that. I mean, of course, some people do care about fashion, and, you know, they're a little bit more about wanting to give off a vibe, and that's totally fine as well. But
And sometimes that works. Like
oh, totally, yeah.
something to do is a ska band from Milwaukee, and they are phenomenal. And they all dress in like a white kind of suit and tie, and some of them wear sunglasses. That works for them, and I think sometimes the look sometimes helps your band.
Oh, sure.
And I think, and but their music's already great, so they can show up, in pajamas, and they'd be awesome. But like sometimes, but that look sometimes adds that extra little, okay, you look as cool as you sound too, So I can see how some sticks help boost,
Well,
the stage presence,
well, right, and ska music, I think in particular, has shown that if you can adopt a particular look, for your band and have that be what's associated with your band, that can kind of help to elevate it. Like, I mean, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones are a good example of this. They were one of the more modern ska bands, at least not this modern, but like when I was, a little bit younger, learning about ska, it was so easy to pinpoint, oh, well, those are the guys that wear the suits, like they always wear the
they
plaid
wore
suits.
suits, yeah.
Yeah, they always wore, well, and specifically like the plaid suits, and it was like, yeah, that was the ska band that wore the plaid suit. So it made you remember it, so that it can absolutely like make a difference. And then like, you have like bands like the Aquabats who, I mean, they're literally a Devo ska punk band, like, or almost like a Gwar, ska punk band, so, or even Kiss, for that, like, better word. So it can work, but I think what really boils down is it authentic? Like, or are you just doing it because like the other guys did it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that as long as you're able to present yourselves in a way that's like unique and isn't completely like aping somebody else's style, then you're good. And like, I didn't get that from you guys at all. I just thought you guys had great energy. So,
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
as speaking of the Punk the Burbs festival, so, going into what potentially was going to be the fourth year, I mean, I've been somebody who's done a lot of show promotion myself. And so I fully understand that the task alone of booking a show, seeing a show go all the way through from start to finish, from booking bands to getting sound and sound people and lighting, and like all that stuff, getting paid. I mean, that's a huge undertaking. And I mean, a festival of that size, even though it's not the same size as like, say, Warped Tour or Coachella or something like that, I mean, is still just like an enormous undertaking. And I was hoping you could kind of give me an idea of what you had to kind of go through to see that happen, and just kind of tell me the story of like how that all came about. And, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, so when I was 14, I guess that's when I really first started playing music in the scene and everything like that. And throughout the years, I kind of got good at, making connections, making contacts, booking contacts. And there'd be times where I'd always want to, book my own shows. And sometimes I would do that, throughout the years, being in bands. And then I always had it in the back of my head. I'm like, it'd be cool to do, a fest one day, because I felt like, okay, over the years, I've met so many bands. I know so many bands that would be able to play. I know how to get some of those bigger bands and write, construct riders. I've when I went to college, I, had friends that were music business majors. So I knew what a rider would look like. And, and I know how to set up a PA. I was like, I have my own PA. I'm like, so, sometimes I would bring my own PA to the shows I set up. So I'm like, okay, maybe one day, but it just seems so big. It'd be nice to have some help. So I made this group in like 2014 called Punk The Burbs, Illinois. And it was just to really just promote shows in the suburbs, because there were mostly Facebook groups for Chicago shows, or it was like punk in Chicago or this in Chicago, but people forget there's such a vibrant music scene in the suburbs. So I'm like, okay, this one's for the burbs, this one's for the burbs in Illinois. And then Jason, he, who owns a couple School of Rocks in Illinois, and I've known him, since I was a teenager and everything. And he messaged me, he said, hey, that's a really cool name for a group. And have you ever thought of wanting to start a fest, like based on just local bands in the burbs, and then maybe, a couple headliners? I'm like, I've always wanted to, but never really, felt confident to, because, I'd be all by myself, and it's such a grand task to do just by yourself. So he's like, no, I'll help you. And I got excited because Jason knows so much of the business side of things. He owns businesses. He also has a lot of contacts because, he's a little bit older than me. So he's also had a lot of experience in the scene. So I felt like both of our powers combined, we're going to rock this. And let me tell you, year one was like, oh my God, cake and ice cream. It was beautiful. we were so, I remember telling Jason, I'm like, oh, watch this first, this first year's going to crash and burn, cause it's the first year and we've never done this. But it was so easy. All the bands actually started on time, people loading in and out perfect. It was like too neat, and it was scary. And I said to Jason, I'm like, uh-oh, year two, we might not get so lucky. We're getting lucky right now, even though it was really hot in the building. That was the only downside, was it was really hot that day in September and the AC was barely working. But I mean, it was perfect. And I think,
let me ask you real quick. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but that first year, who did you book for that show?
So a lot of local bands that, we knew, and then our bands, of course, because we were like, we want to have our bands play too.
Sure, yeah.
But we had Squirt Gun, we had the Crombies, and we had AM Taxi. So the headliners were stacked. I mean, it was so great. And they brought people like you wouldn't believe. Oh my gosh. Like, and that's the thing, because, you're hoping the headliners will bring some pull too, because our locals had some pull, but, and they did, everybody, but even there was some teenage bands that we had play, and they brought a lot of their fans. And I was so happy. We were so happy, because the point of Punk the Burbs really too is to have a place where the younger bands can have the spotlight. Because I remember when I was younger, I'd be so frustrated because I felt my band was talented, but we can never get on bigger band bills and open up for Tsunami Bomb or, the Queers or the Boll Weevils or Teenage Bottle Rocket, or, because we didn't, know someone who knew someone or had the experience. But not on my festival. Like I said, fuck that. Like, you know what, this is going to be, we'll have headliners, but you could have started last year and you can be on this fest. I want this to be, everybody gets their chance to have their spotlight. You don't have to be over 21 and have 10 plus years of experience. And, and another thing too, I think another reason it went so smoothly too was because, what was I going to say? I'm just bouncing all over with ideas, but, it went so smoothly too. We made sure to drop contracts, because once again, I kind of went into that music business level, what I've learned from friends and what I've learned from playing on other fests, other contracts that I've had to sign for festivals I've been on. And I'm like, okay, this is, tell people where to load in, what their time is, give them the promotional materials. And and then that's why it was so successful too, telling them, okay, how to promote, when to promote. And, so I think that was key, to the contracts and letting each band know, what to do, not just being like, okay, show up at 5 p.m., so it was, And then year two, also successful, a blast. We were, so even, I think year two was the bit, it was bigger. The Queers and the Boll Weevils, oh my gosh. And then Punk the Burbs Fest 3 with you guys and Mr. T was amazing. But I'm not going to lie, PTB 3, that was the hardest, because that was the 2 days.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so you guys went from doing the 1 day to doing the 2 day, and basically doubled the number of bands, correct?
And it was double the work. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can only imagine that it was double the work. I mean, as far as like any, real, I mean, that's awesome that you were able to, like, at first make those first 2 years seem like, oh man, like this is not that big of a deal,
Yeah.
Or I mean, like, yeah, I put the work in and it paid off. But then with year 3, oh my gosh, like double the work, hopefully double the payoff. But like, was there any like market difference that you could tell between, I mean, and, obviously double the work, but was there anything that like kind of changed like between that, that kind of made the third year increasingly more difficult besides just the second day?
Oh, I mean, there was just so many things, and we tried to prepare as much as possible. Um,
I mean, I remember the
but
weather was kind of weird.
the weather was weird.
Yeah.
There was also some sound. So we were supposed to have the other stage. That's another thing. Oh my God, two stages. It was just, we thought it'd be cool, but it was tough because people were like, oh, is another band playing already? Because we literally had, after the one band was done, the next started. And that actually, I don't think the crowd enjoyed that so much because it was like, oh, where are they? They were supposed to be outside the other stage, but the weather was so weird. So they had to go to that other side, and the sound was not good there. We had a great sound guy, Johnny Halfton, amazing sound guy, but he can only do so much because that room
Right.
was so echoey. And,
Right.
and there was nothing we could do about it. And there were so many, and it was so tough too. Cause the bands, we could give them some free beers and maybe 2 guest people to come in, but that was it. We could allow so much more for the band's last 2 years, but because this was so much bigger and, we had to make sure the headliners get their money and everything, we had to make sure, the venue was, getting their money and everything, and it's just, so, the perks for the local bands, they weren't as much. And we felt so bad.
Can I ask?
And,
I remember, if memory serves, it was what, like 2 weekends after Riot Fest, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and like, I mean, obviously timing it can make a big difference, and like I'm curious, do you think that potentially because it was so close to Riot Fest that may have like affected anything with the festival,
Yes and no. So Jason and I were always talking about this. I'm always telling him like, man, should we make this in like August? But then it's like, well, 350 Brewfest is in August.
Hmm.
Should we make this in July? That's too early. And, we're usually going on vacation in July. And then October, there's the fest in Gainesville. So it's like, it's everywhere and there's just no way to beat it. And so we just kind of settled down in September because I don't know, it was just like kind of the best time for both of us, but we also kind of felt like, hey, at least we're giving people 2 weeks break. So if,
Right.
and sometimes people don't go to Riot Fest or they only go to one day. So people, they don't get really too tired now after Riot Fest because they're like, okay, I just went to one day. So yeah, that was a thought, but I don't think it was so much Riot Fest. I think the reason the past year, it was actually the time that bands went on. Jason and I realized like, we were putting bands on way too late.
Yeah,
I thought that was okay at first because the first 2 years, I mean, what was it? The Queers went till 1 a.m. and
okay.
there was tons of people there.
Sure.
But for 2 days, I mean, everybody's tired. So it's like so next year, we already said it. We're like, next year's show is ending at like 11 p.m., or 11:30 at the latest.
Well, and I think that's a really important thing to kind of just find out. And we certainly were not like, oh fuck this is stupid, like we were glad to be there and enjoy, and we totally enjoyed ourselves. Like we had a great time, and like our friends in the Von Tramps and Crimson Riot were there. Our buddies in Super Bad Merch had a booth there, so that was cool to see them. And then it was obviously like neat to meet everyone and see all the other bands, but because we were incredibly like flattered that you approached us to do this festival, because we've been wanting to come to the Midwest, and the band hadn't come to the Midwest since the band had gotten back together. So this was our opportunity to come out there, and so we were really excited to do it. But going in to what will hopefully be next year, I mean, you're talking about wanting to kind of make sure that your timing is a little bit more in line. Do you think that you'll do another 2-day, or are you going to keep it a 1 day?
So, well, hey, I'm giving you. I mean, yeah, hair.
I mean, you don't have to spill anything you don't want to spill, but
I mean, I don't mind spilling it. I don't. Sometimes I don't like being like totally secretive about everything because it's like, just say it. But we talked about it, and we were excited for this year because I feel like number 4 was going to be like, we know what's good, we know what's bad. Like after 3 years, okay, let's, but we decided, I said, Jason, it needs to be one day again. We know, because I remember one day I had fun with it. There was no pressure. It was just so much easier. And he's like, but then he was like, well, are we kind of backpedaling then? Are we, backing off? And I'm like, I don't think so, because for me, it's more about, let's just have something successful, super success. Not that PTB3 wasn't successful, but I felt like our single days were just a little bit more successful, easygoing on ourselves, easygoing on the fans, the bands, and let's just do that. Like, let's just make this easier for everybody. But then we came into an agreement where Friday, we'll probably do Friday a pre-show. So only 4 or 5 bands, and then Saturday will be the big fest day. So we kind of came in the middle, like we'll do 1.5 day, kind of thing. Cause oh my gosh, like if it's just 4 or 5 band pre-show thing, one of us, I could just run it, or he could, doesn't need like a bunch of people. But for the actual fest day, it would need both of us, but it's easier on us. Plus, I'm not asking all my friends to volunteer. That was another issue where we needed a lot of volunteers for PTB3. Yeah, my friends, they were like, yeah, I don't know if we could do that, because it was even much for them. And I'm like, I can't do that to my friends again. I can't have my boyfriend, my boyfriend had his drums there, and I'm like, he's leaving back for Blue Island, which was an hour away, carrying his drums back at 2 a.m. It's like, no, we're ending this early, and we're keeping it a chill 1.5 days.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, I think that that's a really good thing to learn and acknowledge. And just like, moving forward, if you know what your limits are, and if you know where, you can be successful, then I totally think that that's a great call. I did a couple of fests, when I was living up in Sonoma County here in California, and they weren't like 2-day festivals, but they were more like the 1-day, all day bangers. The longest one I ever did was, I think it was 16 bands, I think in total. And it started at 3 p.m. and it went till midnight, because we had a hard curfew of midnight for sound. And thankfully, everyone did their job, and like,
wow.
I mean,
no punk times.
Boom, boom. And I mean, it was awesome. I mean, but man, that day was so stressful. Like, I can't even tell you, like, just having to like coordinate and be the guy, like the person that everyone's asking questions to. And then you have to have an answer. Like, you have to have an answer.
Yes. Oh my God. People grabbing you. I mean, sometimes people literally like taking me, but hey, do you know where where can I get my drink tickets? Where's the keg? Should we load in here? And no matter how clearly you mark things where they are, it's like you still need guidance. And that's why I was like, okay, we're going to need volunteers for PTB3, because that was, even though 1 days are easier, like you said, you're the person who has to have, all the answers, and that's the thing with me too. So I like to be in a leadership role, and I like to, be in the front there. But sometimes I gotta, be like, oof, did you bite off more than you could chew? Try and find a healthy medium here, Caitlin. See if you can make sure you get some extra help and extra hands, because that could be, a lot.
Oh, yeah. Quick question regarding the Punk The Burbs festival, or just festivals in general. Like, is there any advice that you would give to any bands that are either wanting to play at festivals, or even your festival, that you would suggest to them, like, really hone in on, in terms of like, not only like etiquette, but just like, hey man, like, if you want to play our fest, like, this is kind of like the expectation that we have for your band,
Yeah. So every year, when we tell people, you can submit, we say, please submit, something like, from Bandcamp or YouTube. I would say bands, and this goes for any submission, I think, really try and send an audio that is very good, at least, a wave, audio file, something that you can hear, and something that really represents your sound, and maybe even a performance of you playing live too, just so we can, see how you operate live. Because there's a lot of those bands that sound great recorded, but, live, not the same case. But just, make sure you have quality recordings of yourself, audio and live. Also, try not to, how do I put this? Try not to expect too much. I think what we've run into is, there's a lot of bands that, everybody expects to get paid. And I have to remind people, Jason and I, we're always learning, and we're people in bands first and foremost. We're not really like business people through and through. So this is going to be a type of festival where, we'll try and get everybody paid, but we got to do it in a certain way. I know the only reasonable way, unfortunately, we found for the local bands to make money is, if they sell a certain amount of tickets. I hate that, but it's like, it was the only fair way to be able to pay the local bands, because, some local bands played the fest and didn't bring anybody, and it wouldn't be fair to just pay everybody this set amount. And we'd love to do that. We wish we had the money, but and that's, I think, a thing for a lot of, just remember, for like the festivals that are still in their toddler years, like PTB, we're no Riot Fest, we're no Gainesville Fest yet. So, sure. Those bands, maybe they have the revenue to really like pay out everybody, but for the smaller festivals, be gentle. Don't expect that we're going to be able to give you, $500 out the door. We wish we could, but just, I would say, lower your expectations as far as pay wise, and know that, the fests are really, first and foremost, a way to get yourself out there to a bigger audience. And yeah, I would say also make sure you show up on time. There's no punk time. These fests, they have to, if we have one band going over the other, then yeah, maybe the show will go on late regardless of what time we set. So make sure you're on time, make sure you're ready to go. If you can, try and help out the fest and backline your stuff. A lot of bands, we tell them, don't worry about bringing your own amps and stuff. Let's backline, because then things will move smoother. So, just try and ask a fest if there's a backline, and usually there will be, but yeah, try and go with that backline, use the amps and the drum set that is there. I'm trying to think if there's any other tips for bands.
All that stuff sounds like totally reasonable, it's like one of the things that, I can speak to definitely about the time thing. Oh man, like, talk about one that got away. When I was in college, I was at this festival in the Central Valley in California, in this sleepy little, town that no one goes to, but they were holding this punk festival. And it was kind of a mix of like punk and emo and like ska bands. Well, there was this little known band called At the Drive-In that was headlining the festival.
Okay.
Right. And this was before they had kind of blown up. Like, this was just before they had blown up. Right.
Okay.
So there were people that knew who they were because they were already on like Fearless Records, but they hadn't really blown up. Right. And I remember getting a sticker of theirs being like, oh, this is a cool band name. That's cool. But I was there to see like Link 80 was playing. My friends in Wet Nap were playing, a bunch of other local bands that I knew of. Right.
Okay.
And so, we're thinking blah, blah, blah. Well, a couple of bands kept like delaying, right? And all of a sudden, Link 80, who was like the, not the co-headliner, but like they were the main support, they finished their set, and sure enough, they had to cut it off. So At the Drive-In didn't get to play at all. And like years later, when I finally saw that video for One Arm Scissor, I'm like, oh, that's that band? Damn it. Like, I could have totally seen this band like before anyone knew about them. Like, at this small little like Elks Lodge too, in like Manteca, California. Like, what the hell? Like, that's one of those stories that you want to hold on to, and like, I couldn't do it. It was still a fun show. Like, it was a really fun show. It was a great day, but like the chance to have seen At the Drive-In, and from what I understand, they were pissed, And I don't blame them. Like, they were waiting all day. Like, they were on tour. So, geez, like, I think that's a huge thing that you mentioned is like, dude, if you're in a band and you're playing a festival or any show for that matter, show up on time. Like, don't be dumb. Like,
And
show
that's
up.
the thing. And people be pissed at you. I mean, forget about the showrunners. I mean, people, they want to see the local bands, but like you said, like people were probably bummed that they missed At the Drive-In, or they'd be super bummed if they missed Tsunami Bomb or Mr. T Experience of the Queers. And it's like, so kind of be thoughtful, mindful of the other bands, not just the
Right.
headliners. There's a lot of people that came for the locals, and yeah, so give everybody their chance to
Yeah, and I
play.
mean, things happen, of course. Like, you get into an accident, or like you get delayed somehow. All
The
that stuff
equipment,
can be
yeah,
forgiven.
yeah,
But now in like the age of cell phones and stuff like that, it's like if you can't make a phone call or something like that, like you have no business playing those shows.
yep.
But no, wow, like that's a huge undertaking. I applaud you for putting that together and for continuing to do it. I
Thank
really
you.
hope that next year it comes together. Something else that I really wanted to kind of ask you about was, I know that you work in a hospital, and you work as like a music therapist, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're in a hospital all day, every day, and like I remember you posted something on Facebook, um, and I don't want this to become like a political conversation, because it doesn't have to be, but everything is political at this time, But I kind of want to get your opinion on like this whole mask debate that's going on. Like you basically posted that being somebody who works in a hospital all day, you shouldn't really have any reason not to be wearing these masks to try to help, limit the spread of COVID-19. And I just kind of want to hear you say like your thoughts on that, if you don't mind, because personally, I think that people need to suck it up and just do it, and that's just my opinion. You can hate me if you want, but I think that people are fools to not do it, and to not like be a little bit more empathetic about it. And that's just my stance. I'm not going to speak for you on this, but that's my stance. But I'd like to hear what you have to say as somebody who actually has to live that all day,
Well, you would be correct. I agree. I think people do need to suck it up. Um, I am on a hospital floor, so I work 12-hour shifts, 3 days a week. Um, yeah, on older adult psychiatric unit. And so what happens is we usually wear the surgical masks when we're in their day room. But so how do I explain? So when patients are getting admitted into our unit, they have to go into PUI rooms, persons under investigation rooms, where they get 2 COVID tests. And then after that, they can get admitted into the day room if they test negative twice. So, very controlled environment. Yes, it's a hospital. But yeah, we're in those rooms with them because we have to watch them, while they're waiting for their test. And so in those rooms, you can be, and those tests can take 1 to 2 days. So
Right.
we'll have people, changing every 12-hour shift, watching those people with the N95s on. So in that picture, I also had my filter and big N95 mask on, and also they're having the goggles on. We have to have the gowns on, the gloves on. People have those on for a whole 12-hour shift in one room
Right.
watching a patient. And they're fine.
Yeah.
They're fine. And there's more than one nurse and doctor that had did the same thing I did with the O2, the pulse oximeter, and they came out with the same results. There was one nurse that had like multiple masks on, and they were, their pulse ox was like 100. It's real. It's true. There's no way to die from wearing a mask for a long period of time. There's no medical condition either that prevents you from, or makes you, or so you can't wear a mask. I know people who they have COPD, they have breathing issues, but they're still able to wear a mask. And I've read the studies myself. I've read the research myself. There's people where they've, put masks on people with COPD or people with breathing issues, and their O2 was fine. There was no changes. There
Yeah.
was nothing. I also like to comment too. It makes me laugh. I'm sorry that some of the people that are concerned with this too, they're smoking cigarettes. They're
Right.
putting God knows what into their body already. I'm like, you want to talk about what'll affect your breathing? smoking your cigarettes or smoking whatever you do, or being around secondhand smoke, that is what's actually dangerous for your breathing. So I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I bet half these people like, I can't breathe with my mask. And I'm like, but you can breathe with your 12 cigarettes or, whatever you're doing. But that's the thing. Yeah. It's so, and we've been doing this. Medical professionals have been doing this for years. I mean, even before COVID, there's doctors that were wearing masks, doing surgeries, intentional, brain surgeries, people for hours, doctors in the ER wearing masks for a whole shift, and they're fine.
Yeah.
So no, people, you will not get carbon monoxide poisoning or pass out or get a collapse lung. That is false. So, and there's research to prove it. And I encourage actually people, if people still don't believe me, go out there and read real research. And I think what I meant by real research is make sure you're looking up websites that have .gov and .edu at the end,
right?
Not .com, not .net, because those are probably biased, right, or have a political agenda behind them. So, make sure to educate yourself if you don't want to take my word for it, or healthcare professionals, because yes, this is real. And just to touch on how real it is, I'll never forget when the pandemic first started in Illinois, when it first blew up. I was just doing my job, just a regular day. And we have the medical doctors who come onto our unit, after they come on the ICU, because they also take care of our patients too, which was also scary at the time. But what are you going to do? We need doctors. And I'll never forget when one of the doctors said, there's people up there in their 30s and 40s, and they're dying, and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
And I can't even describe like the fear, and that was all it took for me to take it seriously. There was nothing I had to read on Facebook. There was no YouTube video. That was all the experience that I needed, and all that I needed to tell people to shut the fuck up and wear a mask, and shut the fuck up and social distance, wash your hands, because there was healthy people that were literally saying to him, am I going to die from this? And he couldn't say anything. I'll never forget looking out the window of my hospital, seeing families cry on the parking lot, hands in their heads, shaking in disbelief. That was all I needed. And that's how the proof, and so I tried to pass it on to people, just like this is real. You're not invincible if you're young.
Right.
And yeah, it's killing. It's more of it's a disease that can really be severe in people who are older or people with underlying conditions. But I really want to put it out there that young people are experiencing, severe symptoms and death as well. It's real. And please, people, be safe.
Well, like I said, I don't want anyone who hears this to like really take from this that we're trying to shove something down your throat because we know better than you do. That's not the reason for this. The reason is just to tell you, it's like, dude, this is a person who literally works in a hospital all day, and if she can do it, you can do it. Like, exactly. I'm
not somebody, I'm not some major athlete, I'm not an unhealthy person, but I'm not some, Ironman marathon runner, athlete, and I'm able to endure this. I'm sure everybody else can. I know men and women that I work with that, they have asthma themselves. They have pre-existing conditions, and they're able to wear the mask for all 12 hours. So
right.
Suck it up, people.
Well, and thank you for just being, blunt about it. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure plenty of other people out there do too.
Yeah.
Well, hey, to jump off of a heavy subject and move on to something a little bit more light.
Yes.
I kind of wanted to get an idea. So you guys are out there on the outskirts of Chicago, and tell me a little bit about like what's been happening in the kind of Midwest scene. I mean, you touched on some of the bands. You mentioned a few bands earlier, and obviously you're at the forefront of handling one of the bigger festivals out there in that area. But maybe like talk about some other bands that maybe people may not know about that you'd like to kind of just say, hey, you should check these bands out, and like they're doing really cool stuff.
Yeah, oh my God, there's so many in the Chicago scene too. I actually just started something on the Punk The Burbs Illinois page too, like Band of the Week. Because not only because we can't play shows and there's no other way for us to get our music out there, but also another way for people to see some bands out there. I like made a list on my phone too. There's always like these local bands. I make a list. Um, but in the Chicago scene, oh my gosh. Well, just to start off with ska bands, um, so many good ones. So Run and Punch, Beat the Smart Kids, Land Before Tim, some great bands that are doing some awesome things.
I love the name.
Um, I know the names too, and great people too. Um, who else was I thinking of? Um, Actually, let me look on my list here because there's so many. Chicago, it's like a gem.
It's a
There's
huge
there's so
city.
many,
So.
and there's so many bands. Okay. So the Miserables, they were a band. They just released something, I think last year. Whatever This Sucks. I love that album. It was so reminiscent of Nimrod, that Green Day Nimrod era. So I would check them out. They're great. And I've jammed some Green Day songs with them in Halloween in the past. So great people, great band, The Miserables. And then a band probably people are familiar with already, but I just got to push them forward again. Sincere Engineer.
Oh yeah, sure. Hmm.
Oh my gosh. They're so great. And when I saw them at Riot Fest, I was just like, yes, you guys rock. Especially Deanna too. Especially whenever I see like a female come out of the scene in Chicago and they're just fucking killing it, it's like a win for all of us. It's just, I love it. And then when I saw just Sincere Engineer, I mean, they're killing it and they're back in the studio even right now. I'm just like, yes, like so keep checking them out, even though, I think a lot of people, know about, Evil Engine. I know we played with them at the fest. Great band. Mystery Actions too, like
Okay.
all girl, like just classic punk band. Great. And then Stellar West. They're like a really like a younger band, but they're yeah, like probably early 20s, but they're just making music, and they're not just punk. That's what I like to. So that's the thing. I love all types of genres. They got some like indie sounds, some math rock to their sound, and they're just great. So check out Stellar West, and they're from Naperville too, my hometown. So
Okay.
um, yeah,
Sweet.
they're good. And then I was gonna say to Death of Self. I am like not a crazy
Not
hardcore
familiar.
fan, but have you heard of that? Oh my God, they're
Not
just
familiar.
like they're so tight.
Mhm.
It's just it's just amazing how they play and everything. So I would say um check out them and
And I mean, I know that this is kind of like a loaded question, but if you had like 5 albums that you had to take with you on a desert island, like what do you think those albums would be? I'm genuinely always curious to hear what people have to say about this.
so of course the classics. I gotta give a shout out to the Muffs,
Okay.
Blonder and
Yeah.
Blonder. Just life changing, that album for me, because one of my other desert albums would be Dookie from Green Day. I mean, right? Classic album. It really taught us all to play guitar, how to songwrite, really get into that genre of music. I mean, I remember unplugging Dookie in my CD player, like unplugging the headphones slightly to hear how he played guitar. And just that's how I learned guitar, just listening to that album.
Hmm.
But then, Blonder and Blonder, I remember I got into that like late high school. I found like Buff's albums at Disc Replay. I'm like, what the hell is this? This is like, it's like and this is not even all punk. This is just their own sound. And Kim screams and her songwriting and just how the way they all play together. It changed how I was writing music and everything. And it changed, it just, yeah, it changed me, and it really inspired me to just keep playing and keep trying different genres. And yeah, just that album is so great. It's got all emotions in it. And then another album for me besides Dookie and Blonder, I'd say the third one would be Exploding Hearts, Guitar Romantic.
Okay. Hmm.
That really, and RIP, that band. I mean, only Terry is still alive in that band, but oh my gosh, it took away too soon. That band, I feel, could have changed the world.
And that's what
But
that's what a lot of people say.
they were they were on their way. They'd be on Riot Fest like headlining right now. I mean, they were that album. It shows you how to really solo, how a guitar should be played. Like that album, the two guitars, Adam and Terry, like back and forth, they're not the same, but they're doing different solos and it works. And I'm like, that's how you do it. Like
Yeah.
that's how it is. And then the fourth album is another band I'm like so obsessed with, right? White Reaper. I would
Oh yeah,
say
wow. Yeah.
White Reaper, best American band in the world. I think that their second album, that was the one, best American band in the world. Once again, another band that they show you how to play guitar with, they got the two guitars. It sounded like Thin Lizzy with the different octaves. The songwriting's great. It's good for any mood I'm in.
Yeah, I went and
Beautiful.
I got to catch them here in Berkeley last year, or was it earlier this? No, it was last year, something like that. Anyway, and I had heard all this buzz about them. Like I didn't really know anything about them, but I was like, kept thinking, like White Reaper, and I'm like, okay, I'll go check them out. And I just like on a whim bought the tickets to go check them out, and I was like, geez, these guys are really good. Like this is really really
Right?
good stuff. Yeah, like
And it's rock and roll coming
They killed it. Yeah.
back. Like I feel like it's like that. It's like their own sound, but it's still like rock. That good sound of just rock and punk just coming back, and it's just how it's supposed to be done. And then I think for my fifth and final album, um, probably it goes. It's like between two bands. Oh, I'm listening to that. I'm just obsessed with. Cross between the Beths and this band called I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Haim,
Oh,
Haim,
time.
Haim.
Yeah.
Oh my God, both those albums I can just be listening to for days on a desert island. I mean, the Beths, like that's the other band, my solo band. I'm like, oh my God, that's like how I've been wanting to sound for years. The Beths, they are just great. And
Don't you find it kind of aggravating when you like stumble upon somebody who like has the sound that you've always kind of wanted? Like,
it
yeah,
has been same with Haim. Is that how you pronounce it? Haim?
I believe it's pronounced Heim. Yeah.
Oh my God. I just listened to Women in Music Part 3 by the fucking way. Oh my God. I love that album title. I love it because it's so smirking and just like in your face because it's making fun of like people who, and you didn't, thank God you didn't ask any of these questions, but there's like women sometimes in interviews will be asked, how does it feel to be a woman in music?
Yeah, I
And
wasn't
it's
gonna
like
go down that road. Like that's
cringe. It's
yeah.
such a, and I love how they finally made it the title of their album because even when sometimes women's albums are reviewed, it's like they're these are women in music, and it's like no, we we don't want to be just pigeonholed or just no, we're just a band like everybody else.
Right.
Like you don't have to say female fronted or women. So I love how that's their album. And if you look on the cover, it's in a deli with sausages hanging everywhere because I think that's where they first played a show or somewhere. But I think it's also, it's just a shout out to it's women in music, but it's, they're saying it in a tongue in cheek way. And I
Totally.
love
Yeah.
that. And that the music in there is so, it's like pop rock and you could chill to it, but you can also feel it. Like the lyrics, they talk about depression. They talk about relationships. I think one of them was battling like diabetes at
Oh,
the
I didn't know
time
that.
and stuff. So there's like serious issues there and there's laid back issues and they do it in such a way. It's like pop rock with some old school sounds from the 70s that kind of hark back to like Fleetwood Mac and stuff. It's just so those are my desert island albums and I encourage everybody also to listen to them.
No, it's a killer list, and it's
Mm.
got a little bit of everything. It's like pretty rock centric, but at the same time, like you like what you like, and that's awesome. I mean, I certainly love Dookie and the Exploding Hearts record is really solid. And the Muffs, I mean, you got to give it up to the Muffs, man. You have to. But
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed having you here and like asking you about everything that's been going on with Bumsy and The Moochers and Punk The Burbs. And again, I appreciate you kind of giving some insight as to like your world and, kind of talking about, some pressing issues in the world. But, on this note, I wanted to just kind of, thank you for your time. And, we like to end with a song. And so we want to end with one of your tracks. And so which track are we going to play?
Well, so this is an older music video. I know we want to get a new music video out there for you guys soon, but this song is called JP Knows How to Party. And this is a music video we made a couple years ago. Well, I think the release was 2016. It's a song off our EP, Easily Distracted.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a really fun music video. JP Knows How to Party. So check it out and enjoy.
Great. Well, Caitlin Edwards, appreciate your time. You have a great night.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you got it. And we'll hopefully be talking to you real soon.
Yes, please. Yeah. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Peace. Bye.
In the south side, do you wanna go for a ride? To a party, to a show, where it is nobody knows. People pass out over the floor, there's dinosaurs knocking at the back door. JP knows how to party, JP knows how to party, JP knows how to party. Don't dare let the cops in. JP knows how to party, JP knows how to party, JP knows how to party. You better fucking believe it, It's getting really crazy. It's getting little shady. Someone broke the PA. How long will you stay in this house, soaked in beer? People pass out over the floor.